Hello Fleet, and welcome back to another episode of Sail and Chat. And today I'm going to be sailing around my Essex. Well, I guess partially sailing around. I'll actually be taking some of her planes and sort of zipping around this particular map with this particular ship and her planes. Anyways, as we peacefully go around the map and fly around, let me talk about some of the things that have happened. First things first, I feel a little bit better. I've got a bit of a lingering cough still, but a couple of days of good rest and plenty of fluids seem to have made me feel a little bit better. So hopefully the next few days I'll fully recover and all things will be great. Now the car, which was something that I talked about last week, finally I did get it back. They had to fully replace the bumper of the car because apparently it had come misinstalled or misaligned or whatever you want to use that particular word to describe it from the factory. So apparently the car, when it came from the actual Honda assembly plant, came somewhat poorly installed. Now apparently they had some quality control issues with their new plant in Mexico, and the Honda Fit, which used to be made in Japan, had its assembly line transferred to Mexico, and apparently that caused some problems, and now I guess Honda is dealing with it. But anyways, that's the update on the car. I've called the head office, and they've provided me with quote-unquote service credit, which I have no idea how useful that'll be, but something's better than nothing, I guess. Anyways, on to World of Warships news, because that's what you're really all here for. Well, of course, and me answering some of your questions. First things first, the Germans are coming. So the Bismarck, the Tirpitz, and a couple of other ships, but mostly the Bismarck and the Tirpitz, they're coming. And if I manage to get one when they patch it in and before it goes live, I'll make sure to make make video for all of you, so you know exactly what the Bismarck and the Tirpitz are good for or not so good for, and whether or not they are worth the doubloons to purchase with. Okay, so that's sort of the thing that I'm looking forward to. And oh my god, my planes just flew through a mountain. Like, come on, Wargaming. Anyways, no, I kid. Anyways, a few days ago, Wargaming put out, shall we say, a animated bad advice video, which dealt with AP shells. And when I'm watching that video, I'm almost wondering if Wargaming is advocating high explosive shells over armor piercing, because the ship fires its AP shells at another ship, which, by the way, in both cases we can't tell what is shooting at what. We don't know if it's a battleship shooting a destroyer, or if it's cruiser on cruiser. We don't really know. All we see is that the person goes in, grabs AP shells, fires those AP shells, and they just overpen into the other ship, and then the other guy shoots HE and he gets sucked. So yeah, I'm not sure if that's Wargaming formally acknowledging that HE is the way to go in this game or not, but yeah, I mean, really was hoping that AP would be maybe explained in more depth, kind of like what I did with the Captain's Academy video. But like, come on, Wargaming, don't be so silly. You gotta teach players how to play. Don't just say HE is the way to go, because then you're just gonna get HE slinging everywhere. Which they didn't help themselves on, because then they went ahead, at least on the North American server, and they made a contest. And the contest is called the Down in Flames contest. And what you're supposed to do in order to win stuff in that particular contest is go around and set as many fires as possible. So yeah, I guess everybody go out there, fire some more HE. No, come on, Wargaming, come on. You gotta tell people that there's a point and a purpose to both the ammo types and what they're for, because in the current way you've went about it, it almost feels like you're advocating HE over everything else, which most people I think are quite aware as being a very sort of low skill kind of shell. So we'll have to see what they do with that in the future. Maybe they'll make another video called bad advice and animated bad advice, and on the side when they describe it there'll be like animated bad advice for episode 1 of the same show. I don't know. Yeah, it's something that kind of irked me just a little bit, but I mean, it was still a cute video, and hopefully they will make more, but hopefully not with so many blatant errors or problems or whatnot. Anyways, oh right, some people had a question about the Otago, and I've definitely seen that there's a lot of sort of, first of all, whether or not the ship is worth buying, and second of all, whether or not the like how do you actually play the ship to be effective in it for the people who have bought it. Now what I'll say is that I will try my best to get around to making a video about the Otago, because well, I think it's one of those questions that has to be addressed. I personally find the Otago to be a pretty good ship, reasonably effective in that particular ship, so I will hopefully get around to that, and hopefully that'll provide you with a bit of insight on how to play that ship better. So look forward to that sometime next week. For some of you have probably noticed that I haven't gotten around to a Nautical Tales episode this week, and that's primarily because I lost, as I mentioned, I think in an earlier episode, not of this particular show, but of a different series, that I had lost most of my Monday and my early parts of my Tuesday to the car issue. So I am a little bit behind in terms of production schedule, so I'm hoping to catch up maybe early next week to try to get out one rather longer Nautical Tales episode, as I see there are quite a few good submissions from this last sort of week or so. So do look forward to that, and I will try my best to get that out pronto. Now, speaking of which, there is a Mascot vote going on right now on the World of Warships forums on the North American server, and right now on the forums at least, it seems like the ship's cat is winning, and I think I support that. So I'm gonna say, go ahead everybody, go vote for the ship's cat. Oh, and by the way, all the links for like the contests and the Mascot voting and everything, that's all in the video description below. Okay. One last thing before we get to the actual questions sent in from last week is that I had a bit of an interesting disagreement today. There was a guy on the NA server that I had a disagreement with regarding what has a more effective anti-aircraft, armament, the Cleveland or the Atlanta. And I argued that the Atlanta is significantly more lethal when it comes to AA, but this other individual refused to, take my or look into my point of view, I guess, and insisted that the Cleveland, just by the raw numbers alone in terms of damage per minute, is the better A platform. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm actually gonna test this thing. So in another video soon to come, which as soon as I get it done I'll post it up, I will be addressing that particular issue, because I really think the Atlantis is a better A platform. So look forward to that, and we will resolve this argument once and for all. And one last thing before I move on to questions submitted by users, which is, I've been thinking that it would be nice if, I guess we had some kind of t-shirt or whatever, that involved some sort of naval warship thing. And for those of you who watch me on Twitch, we have this whole penguin thing going on. So I was thinking about sort of having t-shirt designs, and my girlfriend brought up this whole idea that maybe she'd take a crack at them and she would try to design a couple of t-shirts and stuff. So I agreed, and these are some of the preliminary designs that have come up. So the first one here is the Otago, and then we have the Bismarck, followed by the Enterprise, and finally by the Grem. So, of course, if you want to see these in more detail, please click in the video description below. There's like 4 imager links that I've put to these pictures. So, take a look at them. Let me know what you think. And mind you, these are still concept drawings. We are hoping to revise them and everything in the upcoming sort of days, weeks, and whatnot. And of course, also answer this following question from me, which is, if these were on t-shirts, would you like to have one? Would you purchase one? So do let me know. And yeah, we're hoping to work on these some more and get them out there to all of you. Alright, well, let's move on to some viewer questions, and hopefully I can answer as many of them as I can. Our very first question comes in from Skyscraper21, who from what I can tell from what he's written, seems to be getting a little bit frustrated with his Japanese carriers, and he's wondering, sort of what exact advantages do the Japanese carriers have, and how can he, I guess, maximize the amount of damage he can cause? Because if he goes full strike package, he feels like he's limited from having no fighters, but if he has the fighters, he feels like he doesn't get enough of a strike package sort of, power. So, Skyscraper, the best advice I can give you is this. The Japanese carriers, they have very, very, very good concealment. I mean, their concealment is, at times, I would have to say, stupidly good. So you have to know how to take advantage of that high concealment. And what I mean by that is you have to get nice and close to where the enemy are. Now, see, this takes quite a bit of situational awareness to know exactly where you can go and where you can remain sort of hidden from the enemy. So if you go there, you do two things with the Japanese carriers. One, you decrease the range that your airplanes have to fly to get to the enemy. This allows you to get a strike off, get your planes back, and get another strike off very, very quickly. The second thing is that Japanese carriers, when your planes do come back, they only have to service 4 planes, which means the supply time is significantly better than the American carriers, which have to service 6 planes. So if you use the the configuration that gives you a fighter, you still have that ability to launch a lot of good strikes, but you have to keep in mind to just get close enough where your strikes can be sort of repeated. Now, why would you carry fighters? And here's the big reason. You carry fighters so that your fighters can take out those darn fighter scouts that make your life so difficult when you try bombing. But remember, once you're getting nice and close to sort of the front lines and you're staying sort of hidden, you're able to, get off enough strikes that your damage is still substantial. In fact, if I look at the stats of good carrier captains, especially good carrier captains in their Japanese carriers, their damage is significantly greater than when they play American carriers. So the Japanese carriers are definitely, good ships, but you have to understand, that the Japanese carriers can't really be as standoffish. You can't really be hiding at the back and launching strikes off into the distance. You have to get nice and close. So Skyscraper, I hope that answers your question. Good luck with your carrier play. If you have any more questions, please leave a comment for me. I will try to get you even more advice from very experienced Japanese carrier captains, because at least so far for me, I haven't had a chance to play them. I have been focusing primarily on the US carriers. So the advice I can give you is still limited to my experience, I guess, encountering Japanese carriers when I play them in my US carriers. These next 2 questions, I kind of decided to put them together because they both sort of deal with something similar. So first up, Ostwar, good question. The diet that I'm trying is not really much of a diet. What it is that I've simply taken what I used to eat, being that being my diet, and I've simply changed what I ate. That's it. I'm not really going on any particular plan or thing or fad or anything like that. I'm simply just changed what I ate. So in the past, where I used to eat let's say like the majority, like let's say 70% of it being some kind of meat or something like that, I've cut down on that quite a lot, and I've switched over to more like 70% fruits and vegetables, and then the remaining 30% I have things like beans, whole wheat grains, and occasionally I would decide to have fish or something like that if I really, really, really wanted some kind of animal based protein. And then on very rare special occasions where I go out with friends or whatever, I might have chicken or something like that. And so far the results for me have been like really awesome. Like, truth be told, I'm feeling generally better than I have in a very, very long time. So it's just a big improvement, and it's really motivating to sort of stick with it. And it's amazingly, to me, it's not any sort of diet plan. It's very flexible, and I kind of just kind of adjust things as I go. And if one day I ate a little bit more meat or whatever, the next day I have more fruits and vegetables. The one other thing I've added to the diet is really that in the morning, instead of having like bacon and eggs or something like that in the morning, I'd instead just have a nicely done sort of vegetable fruit juice, and I put it through a juicer, and I make myself a nice, I guess, cup and a half worth of fruit and vegetable juice, and that's pretty much breakfast. And I can tell you that after having that, first of all, I don't get hungry, and second of all, like, the energy and everything feels great. So that's the that's sort of the diet I'm on, I guess, basically. Now, the reason I put these two questions together is because John wrote this comment, and I read it, and I noticed that you said that you've got arthritis and you're taking steroids for it, and right now you feel like weight is hard to lose, so on and so forth. And and I'm not a doctor by any stretch of the imagination, and every advice I give, I think you should probably run by your doctor first, and that's usually probably a good idea. But while I was trying to figure out how to make myself feel better and how to I guess improve my overall health, I did read up that people, and this is anecdotal evidence, not purely scientific, because they haven't had time to do enough research studies on this, and all that. But anecdotal evidence suggests that people who go on a more, I guess, vegan-ish diet, so basically more fruits, vegetables, and then beans and stuff like that instead of lots of meat, and the people like that have seen improvements in their arthritis. And and like I said, I'm not a doctor, so do take this with a grain of salt, but you hear it, and you wonder if that maybe might help. So I would suggest maybe looking into it, and maybe doing a Google search on it, seeing if you can find any kind of, I don't know, support for that viewpoint, that going on a somewhat vegan-ish diet and can help with your arthritis. So take a look into it. Might help. Not 100% on that, but so far, seeing the changes to myself, at least in terms of my overall health, I think it's worth looking into, because maybe it's just what we eat is actually what's causing a lot of our problems. So give it a shot, see what happens, right? Our next question comes from Gary L, and Gary is wondering about the tier 4 battleships, and he's wondering if there's any tips I can give him to, I guess, grind those particular ships to give him an edge. Well, Gary, here's what I'm going to say. And I'm assuming you're talking about the Wyoming and the Miyogi, by the way. The Wyoming is basically when you get all the hull upgrades and everything, it's basically an upgraded Arkansas Beta. So those two ships play very, very similarly. I would suggest using 1 AP on the Wyoming, and 2, sort of really use the amount of shells that it can throw out to hurt enemy ships, whether those be battleships or cruisers. Now, the Miyogi is a bit more interesting, because the Miyogi doesn't have as many guns, but they are of a larger caliber. And the Miyogi also has one other advantage, that it is rather fast. So the Miyogi plays more in the lines of a battle cruiser than a ship of the line battleship kind of thing. So when you're playing a Miyogi, don't try to slug it out with other battleships head on. I would recommend you more sort of use your speed to sort of support your own cruisers when they engage other cruisers and stuff like that. Also, once again, if you're playing battleships, always remember AP and Citadel hits. Those two things are your friend. Learn how to hit Citadels, and also learn how to use your AP correctly, and the grind becomes quite a bit easier. So hopefully that'll help. And finally, the tier 4 premium Japanese battleship, the Ishizuchi, I think it's an okay ship. It's got a decent amount of firepower at that particular tier, but I do find the guns to be somewhat short-ranged, although the speed, again, is quite nice. So the Ishizuchi, again, do play it like a battle cruiser, not as a battleship of the line. The Ishizuchi also has one other peculiarity, is that even for its rather short-range guns, it has a pretty high arc. So leading with that ship is not that easy. So if you weigh the pros and cons, do keep that in mind as well, whether you are okay with higher arcing shells or not okay with them, and whether or not, of course, the ship suits your playstyle or not. Next up, it's just a bit of a quick shout out. Ku Hanakawa, thank you so much for translating my Captain's Academy series, and adding subtitles for the people who are watching in China. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your hard work. And yeah, definitely looking forward to working with you more in the future. Our next question is a pretty important one, actually. It comes from Joyzy, and Joyzy is wondering, what do you do with the 3,000 free experience that you get when your account reaches level 4? And Joycey, I would say save it. And the reason why I say save it is because later on you're going to find a bunch of ships where they're frustrating to play stock. So for example, the tier 5 Japanese cruiser, the Furutaka, its stock configuration is brutally hard and annoying to play, and that ship really needs its upgraded hull and especially its upgraded guns. So save that free experience, and when you get up to the ships that are really frustrating you, that's probably when you should be spending your free experience to help yourself out. Next up, we have a question from Lasse Nipgard Sorensen, who is wondering if I know when the release of the Russian, English, or German ships are going to happen. And to that one, I'm going to say I apologize, and I am not privy to that particular kinds of information. And of course, also the question about when free experience from World of Tanks will be integrated to World of Warships, I'm also not sure. Although I do think it'll happen eventually, but probably not in the next little while, because I think Wargaming still wants us to obviously play through the majority of the tech trees instead of just sort of free experiencing through 2 ships without playing them. So it'll happen eventually, but at least not for the foreseeable future. Rumer van den Utenaar wants to know what I think about the whole aim assist thing. Well, Rumer, the only thing I can tell you is that I don't support it. I think people who use it should be punished heavily. And I know from everything I've heard so far is that Wargaming is doing their absolute best to stamp this kind of stuff out of their game. But whether or not that is going to deter some of these creators from making them to make a profit, I'm not really sure. I think there's still going to be the occasional individual that is going to use it, but truth be told, I really don't think it gives as big of a competitive advantage as some people might think. Yes, it makes life a tiny little bit easier, but obviously this is not a first-person shooter game. There's a lot more complexity to it, and people who depend on something like this are still gonna get their butts kicked by people who know what they're doing. So yeah, I don't think it's something to be that worried about, in my honest opinion. Our next question comes from Freakin' Boom, and Freakin' Boom wants to know what are my thoughts about the Alaska class battlecruisers, and do I think Wargaming will add it as a premium ship? And Freakin' Boom, what I can tell you in my personal opinion is yes. First of all, I think it will appear in World of Warships. I think it's going to be a very interesting kind of ship, and personally myself, I'm really looking forward to battle cruisers because I really like fast ships with big guns that can be very flexible on the battlefield. So I definitely think that it will appear in game. Now, whether or not it'll appear as a premium ship or have its own battle cruiser line, that's still to be determined. Although with the lack of American battle cruiser designs overall, it is possible she will appear as some sort of premium ship. Not 100% sure there, but we'll see what Wargaming decides eventually. Next up, we have Remo, who is wondering, where is the next Dirt Moments video going to be happening? And Remo, what I can tell you is that what I've done is I've combined the Dirt Moments videos into my Nautical Tales videos, and that's primarily because the Dirt Moments were sort of happening at such an infrequent rate that I wasn't just getting that many. So I've sort of now combined it with Nautical Tales, and if there are Dirt Moments, it'll be in there. Next up, we had a bit of a random comment from Paul Linz, who wanted to know if I drive a German car, and if not, go buy a German one. And he says this comment is so stupid. Well, I wouldn't really say it's stupid. It's a bit of an interesting question. First things first, I mentioned I drive a Honda, which means it's a Japanese car. And second, yeah, I'm pretty sure the last time I looked, the German cars were kind of really pricey, and for me, I think it's still way outside of my budget range, but who knows, maybe in the future I might consider a German car. Hell, even in Canada right now, even the Volkswagens are like stupidly expensive, so yeah, in the future. And next up, question from John, KDOA Night Owl, who asks if I have any sort of tips to help him out when it comes to Japanese destroyers, especially because now he doesn't seem to be getting a lot of experience, about 400 experience battle. Well, John, here's a bit of advice for you, and hopefully it'll help increase your experience gain. Japanese destroyers have a couple of things going for them. One, they've got long-range torps, and two, they've got stealth. So, you've really got to know how to stealth torp really well, which means, staying outside of your detectability range and firing off torpedoes. Of course, just make sure you already have the basics down in terms of locking onto target by pressing X and getting that lead indicator for a particular ship that you're trying to hit, and then firing off torpedoes. Now, how do you improve your gameplay beyond just Invisitorp and the basics? Well, the next step up for destroyers is really sort of like reading the battle, reading the movements of the enemy team. Where are they likely to be 3 minutes from now based on their current trajectory, their current course? Are they likely to pop up somewhere near this island? Is there a way for you to sneak up to that island? It's really it gets to be a much more, it's almost like a chess game. You've got to think ahead. Now you've got to say, okay, if this ship is traveling at 21 knots in 3 minutes time, if it turns up, and that's the movement that it's likely to make, if it's going to turn up a channel, is it possible that I get there and ambush that ship as it comes up? The destroyer play at the higher levels really is a lot more cerebral. It's a lot more thinking, and it's something you have to do if you want to actually start to get a very good kind of experience. So give that a shot, see if it works, and get back to me if your experience gain does indeed go up. And the final question of the day comes from Astro Magic, who's wondering if I could make a video talking about ships that I consider to be overpowered. And Astro Magic, I think my answer to this particular question is, I think how overpowered a ship is determined a lot by the captain who is in command of that ship. So take, for example, if I was to get my hands on a high tier carrier like a Taiho or an Essex or a Hakuryu or even a Midway, I think if you were on the other team, you'd be like, holy crap, that ship is extremely overpowered. But on the flip side, I have seen tier 9 carrier captains that are so bad in their carriers that they might as well just play battleships, because I'm pretty sure they would have done more damage that way. Hell, I've even seen tier 9 carrier captains in something like a Taiho, which is considered to be potentially a very overpowered ship, do like 50,000 damage per game. So yeah, I mean, whether or not a ship is overpowered or underpowered or whatnot, I think determines, by the captain who is in command of that particular ship. So hopefully I've been able to provide you with an answer to that particular question. And that wraps up this Sail and Chat episode. I am going to definitely sign off now because the cough of mine has definitely become a little bit more severe in the last, hour or two. So I'm definitely going to go catch myself some more rest. Aside from all that, hope you all have a fantastic week, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all on the high seas.